Hey everyone! I wasn't planning on making another video so soon, but obviously I've been thinking a lot about pregnancy. I wonder why. um, and I had some things that have kind of been on my mind for a while that I figured I would talk about a little bit, and mainly what I want to talk about in this video is medication and pregnancy. Um, Particularly medication for bipolar and pregnancy. Now, as I mentioned in my last video, I went off my meds the day that I found out I was pregnant. Now, everyone's situation is different, I know, and some people can't go off their meds. They may have such a severe case that they're either very psychotic or they are really suicidal. And obviously, in that case, if you are going to kill yourself, that's not going to help you or your child. So, you really have to weigh it for yourself. And to me, it was an easy decision in the sense that I don't want anything to happen to my child, so I am not going to take any drugs, period, basically. And as far as my mental health goes, I will deal with whatever comes my way without meds, because that's just my personal choice and that's how I feel about it. As I said, it's a choice that everybody has to make for themselves, and you really have to weigh, do you think you can make it through without meds or not? And it also depends on what kind of meds you are taking, because the FDA has different categories of drugs as far as safety in pregnancy, and the classes are like A, B, C, D, and X, and they're varying levels of safety. So if you're concerned about what your particular type of medicine that you're on, how that will interact with a pregnancy, you can easily Google it and look it up and find out what category that drug falls into. Like Class A drugs are generally considered safe. There's been a lot of studies done on them, and no adverse effects have been shown in humans. And like at the bottom, category X is like there's been shown to be a lot of defects in humans, and you should not use that drug at all, basically, if you're pregnant. And then there's varying shades in between. And I personally was on Zyprexa. And Zyprexa is a category C medication. So that basically means that there have not been enough studies done to confirm whether it is safe or not. So it's kind of left up to your discretion and your doctor's discretion and whatnot to decide whether you want to take that medication or not. And so, as I said, I chose not to take it because, in my opinion, there's only been like one study done on it, and that's it. That's not enough proof to me that it's safe. And Zyprexa is a fairly new drug, so obviously there's not going to be a lot of research done on it at this point in time because it's not old. It hasn't been out for a really long time. So, to me, I was not willing to take that risk. And yes, it's possible that I probably may have been able to switch to something else that might have been considered safer. I don't know what the classes are of every single bipolar medication out there, but I really didn't think that experimenting with drugs during pregnancy was a good idea, and so I just chose to go cold turkey and not take any drugs at all. And I've actually been doing pretty well, I think. Like I said in my last video, I was pretty depressed there in the beginning, but I was really depressed before I got pregnant for a while. And then I was really, really sick in the beginning of my pregnancy and stuff. So I wasn't doing so good in the beginning, but I do feel that I'm doing a lot better now. And I actually feel stronger, if that makes sense. Like mentally, I feel stronger. Like I can handle a lot more than I could before. And I don't know if it has something to do with the pregnancy and like my maternal instinct or whatever you want to call it. But I got to thinking about my first pregnancy, and I was not diagnosed at that time. Even though I've had bipolar forever, I was not formally diagnosed then. So I wasn't on medication then. And I had a lot of stressful things going on. That was a really, really bad pregnancy for me, health-wise, and for my kids as well. They were very sick. They had a lot of health problems. Halfway into my pregnancy, I was literally told by the doctors that they had a 50% chance of surviving. So, I mean, I'm not going to get into all the medical stuff that went on because it was a lot, and that's like a whole story unto itself. But basically, it was really bad. And then my kids were born very prematurely at 30 weeks. And for any of you men out there who don't really know how long a pregnancy is, 30 weeks is 2.5 months early. So they were born 2.5 months early, and they weighed 2 pounds each. And they had a lot of health problems. One of my daughters more so than the other. And my first daughter was in the hospital for 2 months, and my other daughter was in the hospital for almost 5 months. So imagine me and my husband, who was in the Air Force. We had just moved to a new state. We did not know anyone. 2 weeks later, we find out our children may die. They are born prematurely. They're in the hospital. We're spending every waking minute at the hospital, doing what we can for our kids and trying to maintain our lives outside of that. And obviously, it was really, really hard. And that was the most stressful time of my entire life. Because not only was I dealing with stuff personally, but I mean, these are my children, you know? And you feel so helpless. You can't do anything. You're at the mercy of doctors and just their personal circumstance. Are they going to get better? Are they not going to get better? Are they going to be disabled? You know, you just don't know at the time. And obviously I had times when I was depressed because, I mean, who wouldn't be in that situation? Anyone would be. But it wasn't bipolar depression. It was situational depression because my kids were in the hospital and I was dealing with all of this. And I would be depressed for like a day, you know, and I'd come home if my daughter was doing really badly and cry about it. But then the next day I would wake up and I'd feel even stronger. I'd be like, we are going to get through this. It is going to be all right. You know, like nothing was going to bring me down. Like I was going to hang in there no matter what. And so that like really positive attitude really carried me through a lot. And God only knows where it came from. I mean, generally in my normal state, I like to think that I'm a pretty positive person, but how I managed to get through that period of time, which was, you know, like a year and a half, the pregnancy and hospitalization, and then my daughter was sick when she came home and all this stuff. So for that whole time, you know, I wasn't suicidal once. I wasn't manic. You know, I look back on it, and even though it was hard, like after my kids came home from the hospital, that was pretty much the happiest time of my entire life. That first year of my kids' lives. It was just great, just having them and watching them grow and being with them all the time. It was great. And I didn't have any mood episodes or any problems whatsoever, and I was not on meds. So I'm really hopeful this time around that things are going to maybe be the same, that I'll do really well and I won't have any episodes, but you never know because it's 5 years later. Circumstances are different now. There's no telling what could happen. That's just the nature of this illness, is it's unpredictable, and there's no saying what's going to trigger you, what's going to set you off. You know, like as far as pregnancy, you don't know if you're going to do well, if you're going to not do well. You're just kind of waiting and seeing. And so it's just kind of interesting how sometimes we can be in such a bad place, yet we carry on and we do fine. And yet other times things could be going well in our lives, and we could be extremely depressed and suicidal. So it's really a weird illness. It just is. But that's what I wanted to say about pregnancy and medication and my choice for going off and everything, and how I plan on managing, which is pretty much to continue counseling and to continue seeing my psychiatrist and everything. And I hope everything goes well, and I will keep you all updated on how I am doing as the pregnancy progresses.